The Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth wish to acknowledge that we are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the beautiful homeland of the MACY Nation. Welcome back. It's a new year. My name is Cheryl Alexander. I'm the knowledge keeper at the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth. And I thought I would bring Cathy in to help me demonstrate a little bit about some mental health tips. How do you keep busy? For myself, I do beadwork and I do a little bit of sewing. I love when the winter gets here. I like to hibernate and I like to sew ribbon skirts, moccasins. So I brought a few things in today to get me going on my little conversation.
Well, I would argue that there are not just a few things in this office. There are quite a few things. We're filled with all of Cheryl's awesome creations. My name is Cathy Cook, and I'm one of the youth engagement coordinators here at the Manitoba Advocate for Children and Youth. Have the pleasure of spending our time in the office with Cheryl, usually surrounded by the most amazing beaded artwork, and she's constantly sewing or beading or fixing medicines. So I'm really...
and so this little segment is going to speak to the UNCRC article, right number 30, which talks about minority and Indigenous children having the right to speak their language and enjoy their culture.
So pretty big, right? As are the remaining 41. So minority and Indigenous children speaking their language and enjoying their culture. I think one of the kind of first pieces to that is having the right to speak your language. So my hope is that any of us out there that are currently familiar with our languages are really speaking them. And if we're not learning how to speak them, Cheryl and I have had this conversation. My mother speaks fluent Ojibwe, and I'm an adult, and I've never learned how to speak the language. Unfortunately, during kind of my formative years, it wasn't widely accepted to kind of speak your language. That's or right. Participate in your culture. So part of my adulthood has really kind of been about reintroducing myself to culture and tradition. Unfortunately, I'm not great with the language. I can share a few choice words, but I won't. But yeah, so I mean, I guess starting off with just ensuring that we are appreciating and recognizing how very important language is, and continuing to support our younger generations to pick up that language, and ensure that they have access to culture, tradition, to ceremony. But yeah, so I guess I'm going to pass it back to Cheryl, because really her focus today is on mental health strategies.
Mental health strategies in terms of keeping your mind busy, not only through the long winter months where the sun is not shining as much, but this year we have an extra special guest, and his name is COVID. So how have we gone through the last year in terms of mental health, to stay busy, to stay active, to stay healthy? But then there's the added factor of you're restricted, code, red, all these different things coming out at us. Closures and fear, health, safety. So things like that, I tend to go into my head and say, okay, how can I turn that perspective into something positive? But for me, I started learning about my culture and beadwork at a young age. I started as a young child. My family that I was adopted into thought it was important to identify some of my strengths. And that was one of the key things. And in my community, there was the Friendship Center. And I got to know a lot about who I was, who my people were. I even met some of my family. But I also got to learn great things that have carried me through my life. Beadwork. I learned how to make slippers. I learned how to sew. And those things carried on. And now I'm a kukum. I've always had that gift, but it's given me not only a means to be able to survive, but busy. It keeps me in my mind. And my grandkids are now understanding about themselves. They're learning. I have two little granddaughters that are always running around, and One just loves the sound of the sewing machine, and the other one likes to touch everything I have. So I pull out things, and today I brought in a fur hide that I'm going to show a couple, John, maybe Cathy, how to cut strips for moccasins. And I brought some moccasins in, and it's a very detailed process. But once you get to understand the finality of the process, you understand what you're doing. You're able to connect with your ancestors. You're able to connect with your self in a way that you can help yourself on your path. Your moccasins are what is going to get you going.
Well, and I think when I'm listening to Cheryl, I'm listening to just her talk about how it's important, I guess, for everybody's mental health to make sure that you're continuously challenging your mind and trying to stay positive. But the beading and the creation of something really is such a tangible way for you to, transfer, what you want into something visual.
Oh, big time. When I used to learn about beading, I used to think, oh, just slap that picture on there, get it going. But there's a process, and each bead is considered a person. There's lots of teachings around beadwork. There's lots of teachings around. People used to say that the communities would be able to tell whose beadwork was whose. Families had colors, certain colors that they used, certain styles that they used, right down to what they could have on there, for what ceremony it was for, if they could have fur on it, if they could only have a certain kind of fur on it. There's different types. I use the pucker toe. There's also the pointed toe slipper. I'm going to venture out and try and make a pair this year, so I'll be updating this video cast, but I plan to do more. So there's lots of things involved.
That looks like a lemon.
No, this is beeswax. None of beeswax, I like to tell the kids and laugh. So there's a lot of laughter going on. I cut out a little piece of leather, so then I would sew that to make a leather thimble. So then my fingers, I could probably walk to Texas on my fingertips, because even with arthritis, I can still manage to pull. I have my little needle case. I have my melting cloth in various colors that are getting ready to be beaded. Then there's the artificial sinew. And when I used to teach classes, I used to talk to people about, they're like, oh, well, why can't we use real sinew? Well, the whole concept behind artificial sinew is this is what was the animal guts. And they were stinky, and you wouldn't want to use it. It would be just so disgusting. So this is a very close second, and you split this, and it will last forever. The stitches that you use, right down to the Glover needles, are very effective for going through the leather. One of the things that I do miss is being able to tan my own hides. When a few years ago I was involved with my family, and they were hunters. And a few of my sisters would do a stretched hide and do one in the winter from January. And we would work on the hides. It was incredible, but it was a lot of work. And I give the hats off. But I would love to run across a brain tanned hide. Mm-hmm. In my future travels, just putting it out there. If anyone sees this that knows of any connections, I'd be interested in speaking to them.
So we'll look for some hunters for Cheryl, so she can gather their materials and
finished
create
products. I can't tan anymore. I just don't have the strength and energy, because it's a month-long process of being able to scrape the hide, stretch it. Oh, it's
Wow.
Beautiful process. So in the back, I have some slippers in various stages, some fur, and just being able to understand what it is to get going on a project. I noticed on Facebook there's lots of organizations and agencies. I've joined a few online beading nights where you get a Zoom code and you join in, and just they either teach you something or you just sit and visit while you bead, and it's great. So there's all sorts of things in the community to sign up for. There's discussions around mental health. There's lots of things. So when you think about what it is to stay healthy, how do you keep that brain exercised? How do you get through a day? Like for me, it's already, I don't know if it's because I'm getting older. I remember my family and grandparents telling me that when you get older, time goes by so fast, you'd better not blink because it's so fast and you have so much going on. But I remember being young and the days would be so long.
Well, it's interesting, and I think when we're looking at kind of the state of the pandemic we're in right now, when I look at the length of time of the longevity, I feel like it's so new, like it just started, and yet I feel like we've been living it for so long.
I feel like we've evolved through the pandemic, through the shutdown. I remember at the beginning I was all about online learning and scheduling, and now it's I have to get up and see what the day brings. But still having a work schedule, a home schedule. Weekends look totally different, even in the shutdown.
And I think for all families and you know, even young people out there that are kind of, you know, on their own or forging their own paths, it's been a very, very lonely time. So when I'm looking at, you know, looking at the way Cheryl is kind of filling her time and keeping herself busy and making sure that, you know, your mental health is taking care of your grandbabies and you know, your
Inside your
household.
bubble, or even what it looks like to. I'm starting to see a lot of social anxiety online posts about having to go back into the general public to shop or go to an appointment or just things that we took for everyday granted. But now that the fear is the underlying factor. So how can we help them be able to understand, you know?
Well, and I mean, I guess, you know, for those of us, myself, I can't bead to save my life. Cheryl's had to step in and fix most of my work. So I think we've, you know, quietly decided that it's not my craft.
Well, and that's the thing. There's lots of different types of things for different people. I always talk, when I talk to the youth, I say, maybe this isn't for you. Let's build on strengths that you do have. Tell me about yourself. Do you like music? Maybe you're musically gifted. Maybe you can learn to play an instrument without having to read music. You can just pick up an instrument and strum away.
Well, and I think in these kind of pressing times, it's almost given us the opportunity. Like I said, I'm not a crafty beater, or I don't have, I don't know if it's the focus or if it's just I'm just bad at it. But what are the things that you guys are good at, or what are the things that we're good at, and using this time to really identify things that we've always wanted to do but have never been able to do due to lack of time, due to, and I'm going to say sometimes, you know, shame or embarrassment. I had we get to spend time with our youth every week online, and we haven't really checked in on that. But I remember a few months ago, just saying, "What are you guys doing to fill your time to make sure that, you know, your time is healthy for you?" And we talked about music and a lot of other things. And I remember I had one young girl who talked about always wanting to make music, who was terrified to sing a note, but did and actually started creating kind of COVID music videos, just little tidbits of it.
TikTok, I hear, is great for that.
TikTok is hilarious.
I've finally seen TikTok. 10 months into pandemic.
Yeah, so I mean, there are things. So I guess how can we focus on making sure that we're being really, really kind to ourselves, continuing to fill our spirits and make sure that we've got to take the responsibility during this time for our own selves, which again is really difficult because one of the things that really struck me in one of the conversations, and I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but just about the loneliness, how lonely some people are. And I remember, and I can't remember who it was, or I would give a shout out. It was one of our brilliant YAAS team, but they had talked about how we're not built for this. We're not built to be alone. We are built to be part of a community. That intrinsic value of being there to support and help other people. I mean, that's who we are. So, you know, asking us to close off and kind of keep ourselves in a space without that physical connection, it's been tough. You know, people joke I'm a hugger, right? I that's one of the things I miss the most.
Well, and there's personality types, character traits, that we all possess. And exactly when you say that you can't hug, and that sociability factor is really been shifted in our community. That you see the ones that are really outgoing have gone to social media and are on, like, there's so much to follow. Like, I have to limit my social media time because it could take up your whole day if you let it, but it doesn't give you a chance to get the hands-on. And for me, I'm a teacher and a hands-on worker, so I like to show as I do. So explaining things to people, and now I'm learning through work here to be able to do online presentations and through WebEx, and what's the other one we use? Zoom. I'm now a Zoomer, and there used to be Zoomer used to be a senior, but that was the terminology for the older people. But now being on Zoom means that you're social media connecting to other people in various places.
And again, using that as a platform, and I will give a shout out actually to our YAAS team, because we have been working really hard on a mental health research project in collaboration with the University of Manitoba. So our youth have been really working hard on this, and I'm finding that it's sparking new conversations or new ways of dealing or coping with our own anxiety or mental health. So again, something that I just, to me really shows the resilience and the ability of our kids to kind of take themselves out of that box and learn and understand what they need to make sure their mental health is primary. So one of our youth ambassadors posts almost every day with an update about how mental health is impacting their ability to just function, not only in our normal world, but in this new normal. So to me, having a young person actually find the courage to be able to let us follow her that way, right, as part of her healing. To me, it's beautiful because it shows that the growth there and
their understanding of all the different aspects of what it takes to make a very good run of the list of what mental health looks like. Are you sleeping? Are you eating? Are you sociable? Are you shutting yourself off? Is there any kind of, underlying issues there? So they are taking us through that.
And it gives us just a bit of an overview of the life of a young person who is struggling with anxiety and depression and who struggles with their mental health, but who is also using that struggle and that challenge to kind of heal within itself. So yeah. So what else can we do during COVID and during winter? I mean, I can't speak enough about the outdoors. I really can't. Take a walk.
Cathy, I have a few interesting things coming up. In February, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to go for a walk to the bush. We're going to find some maple.
Can't wait.
Yeah. February is a good month because it's Louis Riel month. I love jigging. Oh, I used to teach jigging. I don't know if I could jig anymore, all gimped up as I am. But I love that music. I love to play it, and I love to see who's a natural jigger, because you will find, if you play jigging long enough, you'll find some natural jiggers just showing up, because that beat really gets them moving. So we're going to be having videos coming up as they come up closer to the dates, and I'll be doing a lot more cultural teachings, and I'm going to be bringing in some youth to show, because I'm going to be doing some online stuff with our own kids around make and take packages and showing that little online. I wasn't keen on it at first, but you have to adapt to mental health. For the sake of your own well-being and what's asked of you, you'll have to be able to say, can I do this? And I'm stepping up to the challenge to be able to do a lot of this. It kind of goes against that traditionalist, because you get together in person and you sit together and you have that experience to be able to share, discuss what's ever on your mind while learning something. Yeah. It used to be a real, and nowadays we've kind of gotten away from those, the busyness. And that's one thing that I am thankful. I don't know if many people can say they're thankful for COVID, but COVID has really brought it down to the bone who's in charge, the Creator kind of told us that, you know, things aren't going very well. This is what has to happen, and we have to rethink our way.
Yeah. So I mean, until we're through this, and we're, again, mental health is so important. It's important that we have these discussions. It's important that you know, people that are struggling with mental health, there should never be a stigma attached to that. We all at some point in our lives will suffer from depression or anxiety. So in the meantime, what can we do? Again,
And we can also be helping to reiterate where the resources are. When we find new resources, share them.
yeah.
When there's no shame in our walk, and if we need to ask for that help, that's one of the hardest teachings that we have to learn as human beings, that if we need that help, how do we ask for that help? So that really pertains to mental health. And I'm always there to listen or share or even just spend time in any way we can.
So with that, I mean, some of the tips and the hints from our kids for how they're managing kind of throughout this is really just a lot of it is very basic, you know, drinking water, making sure you're eating healthy, getting outside, getting some fresh air, going for those walks, focusing on what you're passionate about, whether that be making music or drawing or beading or cooking or baking. Find one of your, it doesn't even have to be a strength, find something you love to do and do it. Make sure you're reaching out to your family, your friends. Make sure you've got a support system around you. And most importantly, just being kind and being kind to yourself. That's where you're going to get started. Always be kind to yourself, and that will open you up to make sure that you're able and ready to help and support those around you. So I'm going to say thank you for my little bit.
Miigwech.
Miigwech. And we'll see you again.